Good evening and thank you for joining us. It has been a sobering day on the COVID-19 front. 21 new cases of COVID-19 are being reported here in Thunder Bay today. We'll have more on that in a few moments. But across the province, 1,249 new cases have been registered. Once again, that's the highest number in the country. The unrelenting spike has Premier Doug Ford threatening to put much of the province into a full lockdown. And the opposition is now demanding to know what it's going to take for the Premier to follow through on that threat. Colin DeMello reports.
Across the province, people are wondering if Premier Doug Ford is going to make good on his promise to lock things down should the COVID-19 situation truly get bad. But the question remains, exactly what would trigger that lockdown? The warnings from Premier Doug Ford have been constant.
As I said before, I won't hesitate in a heartbeat to lock things down.
But many are wondering about the thresholds to trigger that lockdown. The government's color-coded system outlines what it would take to move into the red zone, but nothing to move into the gray zone.
If the Premier meant what he said yesterday, perhaps then he could tell us today exactly what the threshold will be for this lockdown.
You know, all throughout this pandemic, what we do as a team and as a province, we listen to our professional health experts. And that's what we're going to continue to do, is listen to the health experts, listen to Dr. Williams and the health team.
The province's chief medical officer of health says they are balancing many considerations.
What is the evidence to support doing that action at this time? What are the consequences of doing that action at this time? Are there severe consequences? Are they minor consequences? But what's the benefits, and to weigh those out and to make sure you move on them.
But the government is also facing scrutiny over its COVID-19 public health measures table. Doctors offering the government guidance were made to sign non-disclosure agreements and are prevented from speaking out.
How can anyone believe the Premier is following advice of experts when he's actually literally muzzling them, preventing them from sharing the advice with the public?
As to the suggestion that every single member of the pandemic table should be coming out with their views of things one bit at a time, that's not the way this thing works. You have one representative speaking, and that representative is Dr. Williams, and we rely.
And while the squabbling continues here at Queen's Park, the situation outside continues to worsen. 529 people in hospital, 127 people in ICU, and another 12 people lost their lives to COVID-19. At Queen's Park, Colin DeMello, CTV News.
A positive case of COVID-19 has come to light at a public school in the Dryden area. The Keewatin Patricia District School Board has announced it's received notification of a case that impacts the Open Roads Public School. There are currently 9 active cases in Northwestern Ontario, or the Northwest Health Unit's jurisdiction. Now, in a media session today, Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kit Young-Hoon says they haven't determined the cause of the case yet, but they are working to make sure that all potential risks are minimized while the school remains open. And also highlighted the NWHU's updated Manitoba travel recommendations.
Recommend that the public not to travel to or from Manitoba unless it is for essential purposes. The positivity rate in Manitoba is the highest in the country. Anyone who has been to Manitoba that is entering our region should stay home and not interact with anyone outside of their household for 14 days after entering Northwestern Ontario.
And Ontario students could get an extended winter break or start classes remotely in the new year as the province considers ways to reduce COVID-19 transmission after the holidays. Education Minister Stephen Lecce says he's talking to health officials and looking at solutions that may include some period out of class at the beginning of January.
We can further mitigate transmission in school and ensure the second semester, January and beyond, remains safe. So I'm not in a position today to announce, other than just to confirm I'm seriously looking at solutions that may include some period out of class that allows for us to protect the gains we've made in this province going into the second year. And we'll be able to report more substantively on that soon.
Lecce says that any announcement will be made so that parents have plenty of time to prepare. Now back to that story we told you about at the top of the newscast. 21 new cases were announced today of COVID-19 by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit. It is the single largest one-day jump during the entire pandemic and brings the total number of active cases in the district to 56. All but one of those new cases were considered the result of close contact with an existing case. Our Troy Charles spoke with Medical Officer of Health Dr. Janet DeMille about what the recent surge in cases will mean for this area.
I would be supportive of us moving in the yellow zone at this time. I think what we're seeing.
With 54 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in just the last week, Dr. Janet DeMille is in favor of Thunder Bay moving from the green zone into the yellow zone. Ultimately, the decision comes from the provincial cabinet and could arrive Friday and be implemented the following Monday. DeMille spoke about the 21 new cases announced and what it means for the city.
The majority of the cases either are linked to our outbreak that started sort of a week and a half ago, as well as to the more recent exposures that we picked up on the weekend and we were managing. So, these individuals were pretty much all in isolation. They've been in isolation for a number of days, so they really don't pose any further risk. But at the same time, I think it just shows you what can happen here, the kind of case numbers we can get now that sort of people are out and about.
The outbreak is in reference to the Adult Teen Challenge Living Centers, which now has resulted in 24 confirmed cases. The other main source of exposure is the local pickleball centers. The number of pickleball-related confirmed cases is now up to 29, and the total number of people potentially affected in those two sources is quite staggering.
So with all our latest cases, like going back a couple of weeks, we have over 300 people isolating at home. Some of those are, families or couples, who happen to be together. But of the individuals who, were playing pickleball, I think it's almost about 200 are that particular group.
It should be noted that all the new cases are self-isolating and there are no cases in the hospital or in the ICU. In a video released online, DeMille advised local residents to reduce the number of people who they come in contact with and to limit social activities to members of their own household in light of growing case counts. Troy Charles, TBT News.
Elsewhere, the Ford government has announced $6.5 million for mobile crisis response services in 33 communities, including Red Lake, Sioux Lookout, Dryden, Atikokan, and the Fort William First Nation. It's part of a $37 million funding expansion for mental health services in the justice system across the province. Solicitor General Sylvia Jones explained the benefits of implementing these mobile crisis teams.
But the mobile crisis teams that are being embedded with police officers, as those 911 calls come in, and we're seeing upwards of 45% are actually mental health related calls, it is truly going to be a game changer to embed mental health workers with police officers so that when that phone call is made, the connections with the community supports are there and can happen immediately.
Thunder Bay Police Chief Sylvie Hoth is optimistic their officers' involvement in a major crime bust in Toronto could lead to more funding here to fight guns and gangs. Police are also looking at added technology to allow officers to focus less on traffic stops. Corey Nordstrom has more from today's Police Services Board meeting.
This October 29th Toronto Police News Conference outlined the 114 arrests made and the substantial seizures of guns and drugs in their takedown of the Eglinton West Crips, and it may be the key to more support for those issues here.
These networks are alleged to have trafficked large quantities of narcotics, specifically cocaine and fentanyl, to many communities outside the Greater Toronto Area, as far away as Thunder Bay.
The project itself really made it clear that that partnership really had huge tentacles all the way to Thunder Bay, and that our work with Toronto helped in terms of the 800 charges that were laid and the 114 arrests that were done.
And Chief Hoth says that connection should lead to more than the $100,000 the city received the last time the province looked to support the fight against guns and gangs.
Within the ministry, it really highlights what we've been saying, and that we need the same resources that are being provided to the bigger centers in terms of guns and gangs funding.
The latest Police Services Board meeting also saw Chief Hoth respond to Mayor Bill Morrow on the possibility of automated speed enforcement being brought to the city.
I guess my question would be, is it something that you see as a tool? Is it useful? Would it free up resource for you so that folks could maybe work on other things?
When you have an officer that's stopping, even though we lay thousands of tickets a year, it takes an officer quite a bit of time when you're pulling somebody over, writing the ticket, and doing the whole administrative background on it. When you're talking about a camera taking pictures, it's doing so at a fraction of a second, so many per minute.
Hoth says cities that have implemented the automated cameras are seeing reductions in speed and higher awareness in drivers. The next steps for the board would be looking at current systems that are in place in other communities. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
City Council says it needs more information before deciding whether to tighten Thunder Bay's fireworks restrictions. That issue was raised by Councillor Aldo Roberto, who says he's received a number of complaints over the years about fireworks being discharged at all hours of the night on or around statutory holidays. Ryan Bonazzo has the story.
Thunder Bay has one of the most lax fireworks bylaws in the province. Currently, fireworks can be discharged on 7 holidays: New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Victoria Day, Canada Day, the August Civic Holiday, Labor Day, and the Lunar New Year. They can also be set off in the 3 days that lead up to any of those holidays. But Councillor Aldo Roberto says people still push the limits of what's allowed.
Because there's numerous complaints when fireworks were going off at all hours of the night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
He says that unpredictability adds undue stress on pets and their owners and those suffering from PTSD. He's calling to remove New Year's Day, the civic holiday, and Labor Day from the list of fireworks-approved holidays. He also wants fireworks to be discharged only on the approved days themselves, unless bad weather forces a change.
Certainly want people to celebrate, but let's do it in a safe manner and respect all people and their pets.
How do we compare to other municipalities?
The number of days that we allow fireworks to be set off is extraordinarily high. When you take 7 named holidays and the 3 days before that, that's 28 days that we lawfully allow fireworks to be discharged currently. That's far in excess of anything I'm aware of in the province of Ontario.
Some on council expressed support for tighter restrictions, but want more information from city staff and input from the public before making a decision.
This is a bigger process than just okaying a resolution from a councillor. I think we're asking administration to do some things. They would need to consult.
I want to see specifics, and so I don't think we're ready. I can't vote for this at this point in time.
Administration will report back next spring. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
Council also heard a pair of deputations last night that focused on animal welfare and the way the Animal Services Division operates.
We are not only recommending a comprehensive review of the animal bylaws for Thunder Bay, but we recommend going beyond. Why not raise the bar? Why not become an example to other cities?
The first deputation came from 3 concerned residents, including Nikki Burns, who's the past president of the Paws for Love Dog Rescue. They want the city to update its animal control bylaws to focus more on responsible pet ownership and education. And Keith Taylor wants to go a step further. He wants New Hope Dog Rescue and Kitty Care Feline Rescue to take over the city's Animal Services Division. He says the city could save up to $320,000 a year by privatizing.
Kitty Care and New Hope Dog Rescue are both registered charities. We hold nonprofit status. That kind of gives us, I guess, a leg up. We can go out there and fundraise. We can go after grant money that the city can't.
Taylor says the charities could attract volunteers to help run animal services. Council has directed city staff to report back with more information next summer. Well, the case of the vanishing parking meters appears to have been solved. More than 60 meters were stolen from their bases in December of last year, with a few dozen more disappearing in the weeks that followed. About a week ago, this photo appeared on Facebook showing a shed full of parking meters. They've since been confiscated by city police and returned to the parking authority. The dozens of meters are now being stored at the Victoriaville Parkade. Parking Authority Supervisor Jonathan Pask says the meters cost about $1,000 brand new, and technicians are now making sure that the discarded meters can be given new life on a city street.
We're definitely pleased that we can go through this and see what is recoverable. The most likely thing to reuse are the actual meter housings, the steel metal outer part. It's the insides that we'll have to, the electronic part that's inside, that we'll have to see what's salvageable and what isn't.
City police are still investigating how the meters ended up in a shed on Johnson Avenue. At this point, no charges have been laid. Well, it appears that Thunder Bay's struggling home construction industry over the past few years has taken another hit, presumably due to COVID-19. Latest statistics for new home starts were released today by Canada Mortgage and Housing. The stats show October was actually a decent month for single detached builds, with 20 homes started around the Thunder Bay area compared to 15 in October of 2019. But there were only 4 multi-unit residences started last month. And for the year to date, CMHC says local home construction continues to plummet. 2019 was an all-time low with just 88 single-family homes and 84 multi-unit residences started by the end of October. And this year, there's been an added decline of 23% for the year to date, with just 75 single homes started and 58 new units from row housing, duplexes, and apartment construction. Just a decade ago, Thunder Bay was seeing over 200 single detached homes started every year. And the 2020 city roadwork season is now wrapping up, and today the 3 latest pedestrian crossovers were activated. Residents will notice the new crossing areas at Pioneer Drive and Windale Street, Court and McVicker Streets, and at Nebing Avenue and Mary Street. The new lights and crossing signals bring the total to 13 that have been activated since 2016. City project engineer Rick Harms says they're now looking for other areas where they should be installed. The crossovers operate best along 2-lane roads, but the city is investigating whether they can be used to cross 4 lanes as well. Harms says the main purpose for the crossovers, like this one along Pioneer Drive, is to promote safe transportation for both pedestrians and for drivers.
Well, this area is near parks or nearby, community center. I believe there's a lot of, during the soccer period, there's a lot of parking in residential streets, so certainly having an assistive device to cross Pioneer Drive will be desirable.
Harms says the city expects to continue budgeting for pedestrian crossovers into 2021. He's hopeful at least another 3 will be added to the network.
Well, Fiona, I'm trying to find a difference between today and yesterday, but wasn't much of a change. Cloudy, it stayed below 0, and the winds were still pretty strong.